Hi guys, so today I have a new and exciting P Mauriat model, and now this is an artist model right at their top end called the 600XJ. And what's briefly different about this model over and above their sort of famous System 76s and 66R models is it takes that typical P Mauriat sound, but it delivers a much more centered and focused sound. And I suppose you could say it's a little bit more reminiscent of that Mark 6 sound that was very well known for having that kind of dry and sort of centered sound. Now, it's got lots of interesting ergonomic features and customizations, so I'm just going to go through those customizations in a little bit more detail now. The first, most obvious thing to say is that it doesn't have a top F sharp key. I know this can be an issue in an area of some controversy among sax players, but amongst the sort of more serious, maybe high-level players, it can be a popular choice not to have that high F sharp key. Personally, I'm a fan of it. So for a start, you don't have this great big cutout here, so you don't get this sort of air turbulence issue right at this crucial bit on the saxophone. And secondly, the horn's a little bit lighter. There's less mechanism, less rods going all the way up and down the body of the saxophone. And personally, I find that the sound of the alternative F sharp using the sort of auxiliary key here and the side B flat and the F key much more pleasant than when you're just using the sort of traditional kind of high school F sharp with all the palm keys and all the rest of it. So for me, that's a great feature, not having this top F sharp key. The second thing to say is, unlike most of the P Mauriats that we know, this one doesn't have rolled tone holes, so it's just straight cut all the way through. And I think that sort of adds to the sort of dryness and the centeredness in the sound. The next thing to say is that it's got a very low key action. It's very obvious when you first run your fingers up and down the sax, just how sort of beautiful and easy it is to play sort of from a technical point of view because of this low key action. And I think also that adds to this more sort of focused sound where the sound isn't sort of so much kind of sideways and sort of filling the room. It's a little bit more directional due to that lower key action. They've also, and you wouldn't necessarily notice this just from observing the saxophone, but P Mauriat have modified the neck in some way, the geometry inside, I'm sure, and this bow section here. But I do understand that it's a 66R body. So it's a sort of meld of these different things, if you like. And some of the finishing touches on the sax, we have this silver-plated section here, the lias holder and the neck screw, that's silver-plated. And it's also silver-plated down here on this bell to body brace. So it's just a little bit more of a cosmetic thing to make it stand out from the crowd. And just the sort of extra finishing touch in terms of it being an artist model is this sort of beautiful engraving that we've got on the bell here. So altogether, the sound, as I mentioned at the opening there, is a bit more focused and a bit more centered than the standard P Mauriat sound. But within that, there's a little bit more resistance as well. And resistance in a good way. You might think the resistance sounds like a bad thing, and it can be if there's too much. But for me, there's just the right amount of resistance, a little bit more than in the 66 models, to just give you something to push against, and it sort of draws out just a little bit extra interest and kind of texture in the sound because of that resistance. I also find that because of that definition in the sound, the upper octave or the second octave is a little bit brighter, a bit more punchy, a bit more contemporary if you like, which can be a great thing if you're trying to play in more modern styles rather than always in that sort of traditional jazz sense. So you have the option of playing in a nice sort of warm, jazzy, fuzzy nature, or at the same time it can push in more of a contemporary direction, perhaps a little bit more than in the 66 and 76 models. And finally, I'd say that I love it when major brands like P Mauriat step out of the norm and come out with customized models like this. It's all too easy for them just to keep producing the well-loved 66 and 76 models and have success with those. But when you take concepts like the 66 and then you dress it up a bit with the features that I've been describing today, you really can come out with a beauty of a sax. And I kind of feel that this fits that mold perfectly. And I'd also like to say, and I'm very happy to say this, but this saxophone is exclusive to us here at sax.co.uk. This is the only place you're going to find it. So please come and visit our Sussex and London stores if you want to try one of these wonderful saxes.